Hello, hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We did it. We made it through another week, and now it is time for happy hour. And this is a little bit of a special edition happy hour, I have to admit, because right now I am not only streaming on Odyssey and Rockfin and Rumble, just like I always have been, but I am simultaneously streaming on both my primary YouTube channel and my second YouTube channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke. I normally don't stream happy hour on my primary channel, but the thing of it is I have gotten so many new viewers and members of my community lately with doing all the content about Tim Pool and stuff like that I've decided to, just for today, do a little simulcast to try to get people into happy hour, because honestly, happy hour is one of the most important streams that I do. Happy hour is a stream where we watch woke videos from start to finish, and we really see what they're talking about behind closed doors. We see what they're talking about when they only think they're talking to each other. I firmly believe that the people who watch happy hour on a regular basis know more about the woke ideology than pretty much anyone else on the planet. And I really do mean that. They know more than all the journalists. They know more than most of the pundits who cover this stuff, because we are doing this from start to finish, watching them in their full form. And I swear to you, when you see it in the full form, what's going to happen is you're going to have a whole new sense of what these people are really trying to do, because I promise you, it's so much scarier than you think it is. So, and someone actually already asked, Scott asked, so which chat is the best chat for YouTube? So I'm going to make the recommendation that if you guys are on my main channel right now, and you're welcome to stay on my main channel if you want, but if you are on my main channel, I would recommend migrating over to my second channel, youtube.com/actively unwoke. This is where happy hour lives. This is normally where it will be done. I'm just doing it on my primary channel today to try to introduce more people to the concept of happy hour, because it's fun. We have a great time with it. And I know that watching woke training from start to finish doesn't sound like the most enticing thing that you can do, but I promise you, it's totally, totally worth it. So I'll leave the banner across the bottom, and I will be reminding people on a regular basis that normally this is only on my second channel. We're just doing it today on both channels as a special treat. Redwood the Elf says, remember the wokies muttering, okay, boomer, whenever someone would mention family values? We need to start an okay groomer movement. I don't know. I kind of, and this is going to be an unpopular opinion, and I know that. I think the word groomer is being way overused. I think it's being overused on the right in the same way that the left is overusing the term racist. I think it's the same thing. So I have mixed feelings about it right now. However, it is a little relevant to what we're going to be watching today, because let me show you what's on deck. And this is something I have to give a shout out to. Now, the channel that this is on, I think, is an extremely right-wing channel. But what this person ended up finding, I'll just fast forward a little bit so you can kind of see what this person found is, I don't know why we're watching this person's Spotify, but okay. This is actually a transgender policy meeting that happened at an elementary school in Virginia. So, one of the things that I keep trying to articulate to people about what's going on in the schools is the schools are doing all of this out in the open. They're having their meetings out in the open. They're recording their meetings. They're broadcasting their meetings on the internet. And this stream here is a recorded meeting in an elementary school where they are talking about the transgender policy. And this took place back in March. And the reason I wanted to watch this with everyone today is that, listen, the reason that they can get away with doing this stuff in public is because it's boring and no one watches it. Yes, watching school meetings is boring. Watching school board meetings is boring, but that's what we do on happy hour. We train to sit through the boring bits. We train to sit through the cringy bits, because we know that eventually we are going to come across like the epic golden nuggets that need to be shared out to the world in regards to what these people are doing. I want everyone to hear how teachers and elementary school administrators talk about this stuff when they don't think anyone else is watching. So that's what we're going to watch today. We are going to watch an actual policy meeting on these issues. And again, if you're watching on my main channel, I definitely recommend, if you want the better chat, come over to youtube.com/actively unwoke. It's going to be exactly the same stream. I'm just trying to introduce it to new people because I want more people to get involved with happy hour, because I do think it's really important. All right, so that's what we're going to be watching today, guys. Now, just a couple of housekeeping orders of housekeeping before we get started. Of course, you know that if you want to support the work I'm doing, one of the things I really focus a lot of my time on is in teaching people everything that I have amassed over the last 3 years of immersing myself every single day of my life into the far left woke ideology. Yes, I complain about conservatives and sometimes I even complain about Tim Pool. It does happen. But the thing of it is where I do spend the most of my time is in teaching people how to fight back against the woke left. I wrote a book called Actively Unwoke: The Ultimate Guide for Fighting Back Against the Woke Insanity in Your Life. And this is my initial download of everything that I've learned. But I got to tell you, I have only continued to build on the knowledge that led to that book in the first place. I'm already formulating a second book in my head right now. And if you would like to support the work I'm doing and keep me in business, the best way to do that is by heading over to activelyunwoke.com/support. And you can join via my Patreon, anywhere from $5 a month all the way up to $250 a month, depending on how much you like me on any given day or what types of perks you want. You can get some t-shirts and swags. You can get some other great perks as well. You can head over to my Patreon to learn more about the different levels. If you don't want to join via Patreon, that's cool, man. I got other options for you. I can understand that. The next best option is going to be my locals community. My locals is where I spend the most time on the internet. I actually do 2 private, unrecorded calls with both my locals and Patreon supporters. So Patreon are invited to that as well. But we do them every single week on Monday and Wednesday, where we talk about whatever we want to talk about, what's going on in the world, how people are acting crazy today, what's going on in our lives. It is very much a support group of probably the last bastion of sane people on the internet. I swear to God, these people have kept me sane over the past couple of years. I really, really appreciate them. Locals, you can get access. You can actually join locals for free at kb.locals.com. The link is going to be in the description below. But if you do want to become a supporter of my work, head over to kb.locals.com/support. And you can join for $5 a month, $50 a year. You can also make a one-time gift, and that's going to unlock all the features of locals and get you invited to those community meetings that we do twice a week. And we're also doing a couple other things coming up this weekend. In fact, tomorrow, there's still time to join if you want to. Still time to catch up for Unabomber Book Club. We have read the Unabomber Manifesto. We are going to be discussing it tomorrow in my community starting at 3 p.m. If you are in my locals or my Patreon, you're going to get a Zoom link out tomorrow, and that's going to be your invitation to come have a chat with us about the Unabomber Manifesto. I'm really looking forward to this discussion. Again, it's going to be private, not recorded. We don't want any prying eyes, no cancel culture here. You're allowed to come with whatever ideas you have, and we're going to talk about it. Talk about Uncle Ted's ideas because, regardless of whether or not he killed some people with some homemade bombs, he still did actually have some good ideas that are worth considering. And so we're going to be doing that tomorrow in my Unabomber Book Club. And then on Sunday, we are continuing our movie night tradition. We have movie nights in my supporter Discord pretty much every single week now, thanks to the illustrious Jennifer, who has been organizing movie night for us. On Sunday evening, we are watching Fahrenheit 451, the original, not the HBO remake, not that atrocity. We are watching the original hardcore 70s version. It is so fabulous. If you guys haven't seen it, this is a great time to watch it. We don't just sit back and watch the movie. We pause a couple times during the movie. We talk about trivia. We have discussions about the themes that are showing up, how they're relevant to our lives right now. So that'll be Fahrenheit 451 on Sunday evening at 8 p.m. in my supporter Discord. And again, you can head over to youtube.com/activelyunwoke, join my Patreon, join my locals, and that will get you access to that. I also just want to remind people that I am currently streaming, not just on my 2 YouTube channels, But I'm also streaming on Odyssey, I'm streaming on Rockfin, and I'm streaming on Rumble. Make sure you're subscribed to me on all those platforms, please, just to have some backups, just in case. But I am on those platforms. So anytime you guys are ready to join me on there, I will usually be streaming. Anything I stream on my YouTube channels is almost always, though not always, but almost always on the other platforms as well. All right, guys, mount that like button for me. Now, we do have a happy hour tradition, and this is only going to be available in the chat on my second channel. So if you're watching on my main channel right now, head over to youtube.com/activelyunwoke, and you're going to get to participate in a little poll. The poll is only going to be on my second channel because we do have a tradition that for happy hour, I drink. I don't actually drink all that much normally, but during happy hour, I have a couple of craft beers or two because I'm a big fan of beer and I like sharing my beer selections out with the world and trying new beers and maybe even teaching you guys about some new beers in the process. So let me get the selection I have today and I'll tell you about it. And then you guys get to vote on which beer I drink first. Okay. So we got some good ones here today. I'm really looking forward to this. So the first one, now I get 4 beers when I go to the beer store just because there's 4 things on the ring. I'm not going to drink all 4 beers. I might drink 1 or maybe part of 2. I'm not going to get like totally drunk or anything. This is just for fun. It's for taste. So the first one, I'm super excited about this one. Very, very excited. This is from Urban South Brewing. It is called It's Showtime. It's got a great Beetlejuice can, and this is a candy stout. I have never heard of a candy stout before. It says a decadent chocolate candy stout brewed with toasted coconut and peanut butter crunchies. Coconut and stout are 2 of my favorite I love coconut stouts. They're so, so, so good. I know it sounds weird, but it's really good. It really does work. So that's going to be our first option for today. It's showtime. I think that's going to be a good one. Next up, we have, and I got this one because it says on the can, it will make you blush. This is called Raspberry Bliss. This is a sour ale. It is from Connecticut Valley Brewing. And does it have a description? No, I don't think so. It's an ale with strawberries. So it's a fruity beer. And then our next one, and this one is dedicated to Bot. I don't see Bot in the chat yet. That doesn't mean she won't show up, but I don't see her yet. But this is dedicated to her. This is called Turning Violet. It's from True North Brewing Company, and it is a blueberry sour with lemon. So that's going to be nice and blue, or purple, as it were. And then the last one I actually had last week as well. So if you're going to vote, guys, don't vote for this one. Don't vote for this one. It's really good. I got it because it's really good. It's called Phone Home. It's a peanut butter porter. And I had to get it again because it was so good last week. I was like, ooh, they've got one more. I'm going to snatch that right up. So let me put the poll in the chat, guys. Again, we have Candy Stout, which is the Beetlejuice beer, we're going to call it. We have Strawberry Bliss. We have Turning Violet, which is the Blueberry Sour. And then we have the one you're not going to vote for because I had it last week. Cider says, definitely the Candy Stout. Excellent, Cider. Excellent choice. All right, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to ask you to mount that like button for me. And I'm going to get all set up. I want to thank you guys for joining me for happy hour. I know Elon Musk is doing something exciting on Twitter right now, which is that he's releasing what happened at Twitter with the Hunter Biden laptop stuff, which I actually think is really, really cool. And what a way to build trust with people. I think it's an excellent idea on the part of Elon. But I'm going to catch up with it later because happy hour is our order of business for today. Phil says, Doc, can we go beer shopping for PorkFest when I'm in town? Yes. Yes, we can, Phil. How much fun will that be? We got to get a lot of beer for PorkFest because we're up there all week. But we can do that. We can go on a beer hunting adventure. New Hampshire, by the way, because of the libertarians, relaxed a lot of their laws around brewing beer and like starting breweries and things like that. So New Hampshire has an amazing craft brew industry. There are so many craft beer here. I think we were like the #1 per capita craft brewery of like the entire country. And that's because of the libertarians relaxed the laws around it. Why wouldn't you be a mod, Metastep? I think you're on my second channel. I think you are. All right, let me see. It looks like Candy Stout is winning the day. Thank you guys for giving me my way. I really do appreciate it. Again, guys, right now I am streaming on both my primary channel and my secondary channel. But I want to recommend you migrate over to my second channel to watch because the chat's going to be better over there. All right, let me pour this. God? God, are you there, God? Are you there? God is back. All right, it's fine. Let me pour this beer. Oh, gosh. It just splattered all over the place. Yes, average person, I'll get you a wrench for this channel. That's cool. Guys, if you're in my locals community and I know that you're not a psycho and you ask to be a mod on my channel, I will mostly give you that privilege, I guess. If you want a wrench, I'll give you a wrench, but only if I know that you're not crazy. Only if we have encountered each other on a Zoom stream or something. All right. Here comes the Candy Stout. I do drink my beer out of a wine glass because I'm bougie like that. I know what it means to be a Oh, Brooklyn Way, I'll get you a wrench. Hang on. Hang on. Gotta re-up all my wrenches. Add moderator. Brooklyn Way, you're all set, girl. I have no idea what a Candy Stout even means, but look at the head on that. That looks good. All right, I'm going to let that settle, guys. Cheers. Welcome to Happy Hour. Thank you guys for being here for another week. Let's get this party started, guys. We are going to be watching a real live transgender policy meeting at an elementary school. So this might be a little bit boring. I'm just going to warn you, this is a real school meeting. But what I want you to listen to is how they talk to each other, what types of plans they're implementing, because if this is going on at one school, chances are it's going on at other schools as well. All right, let's get this party started.
Excited about today's topic. Today's topic is going to be really talking about the policy on the treatment of transgender and gender expansive students. This is close to all our hearts at Mountain View because the policy is really about creating a supportive
really
school
alcoholic.
culture
Holy
and advocating
shit.
for the well-being of students. And that's all students. And so I have a brief introduction that I want to do that will connect today's topic to our work at Mountain View. And then I'm just so delighted. You are going to love having the time that we have today with DeHaven of Side by Side. She just puts me at ease. She helps
gender
me feel
expansive
calm.
means
she
not
answers my
the gender
questions
binary.
so patiently because, you know, we're all learners in school.
This is in Virginia.
And we're learners.
Mountain View Elementary School in Virginia.
Opportunity for us to come together, learn together, and then talk together about how we're going to continue to do what we do well at Mountain View, which is make our school inclusive for all students and staff.
So does Redwood
Elf.
Elf.
My screen.
It does.
And get to our faculty meeting slide deck.
Oh, near Fairfax County.
We're
Thank you,
starting with the end, but we'll come back to that. So really, it's do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. And that's, I feel like, is a great mantra for us all days, but especially today. So today we are going to spend time till about 11:30 today working together. I'll set the stage through the policy. DeHaven is going to talk to us. We'll have time to break out by PLCs to talk about what she presents today. And then we'll have a closing reflection and then PLC work time this afternoon. So while we all wish we were together, it would be so much more fun in person. We'll take advantage of having Zoom. And today's really connects also to rule number 4 of our energy bus, which is love your passengers. And we couldn't do this work
the fucking energy bus. I know what that is.
To kind of set the stage for us, Mountain View's vision that we talked about and we revised really connects to Albemarle County's vision, where we want every learner is empowered to actively and confidently thrive every day. That's our North Star, what we aim to do. And I think we do a great job of this, and we can always continue to learn and get better, all of us.
This is like an administrator meeting,
Our mission at Mountain View is for all students to achieve academic
success
to the best of their ability. in order for that to happen, they have to
The
feel
Energy
safe
Bus
and
is a
feel
book.
included.
It's like
And
like
we've
an
had a lot of
organizational
children
book.
recently, like popping with their social emotional issues. That is normal when there's change, but we always come back to our North Star and our anchor is to really help our children achieve that academic success. So therefore, we embrace our diverse students and families, and together we value anti-racism, bilingualism, and multiculturalism. And that connects to Albemarle County's mission, which is
They
working
value
together as a
anti-racism.
team will end the
Remember,
predictive
this
value
is
of race,
after Glenn
class,
Youngkin.
gender, and
Post
special
Glenn
capacities
Youngkin.
for our children's success through high quality teaching and
He
learning
didn't
for all.
ban nothing.
And we know every student, and we are so proud how well
This
you
is
know your students.
This is a closed meeting, I believe. Not a school board meeting. This is like if your school has like a policy subcommittee. It's like a subcommittee meeting where the administrators are making plans that they're going to like propose, I think. And they record all this stuff, guys. You are entitled to have access to all of this. All of it. No, this is not a high school. This is not a high school. This is an elementary school. Look at Mountain View Elementary transgender policy. This is not a high school. Cider says Mountain View is like all the kids that need extra help but not like special needs, just the bad kids that are oh great. Oh great. I don't think that's even better. I don't think that makes this better, Cider. Phil says meetings like this need to be broadcast out to parents. Like, well, a lot of times they are, but no one watches. And that's the problem. That's part of why we're watching it here today.
How well you share that with us. And when I was able to go to our mid-year review this year, I was able to talk about how we know every student and our processes for showing their growth. So that was because of you. Our values are the same as Albemarle County's, which is equity, excellence, family and community, and wellness.
Of course, equity comes first.
And again, in addition to Albemarle County's values, we really value diverse students, families, and staff. It's one of the things that makes Mountain View special. It makes people want to come to Mountain View and be at Mountain View and stay at Mountain View. And I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. When we come together as a staff, these are our community agreements. We just make sure everyone has a chance to speak with equity of voice. We are kind, honest, and professional. And I think this is a big one for today. We respect different perspectives, each other's time and feelings. So there are different perspectives, and that's what makes our community amazing. And so this is a time and a day that I hope that we also feel vulnerable in asking questions. Like I was asking DeHaven some questions, and she helped me feel very safe because this is a new evolving learning for me as well. So I'll let DeHaven talk about how she wants to talk about our session and how she wants to have that be engaging. So
Cindy, can I jump in really quickly if
yes,
you can hear me?
He is wearing a mask on the Zoom. Holy shit. This was March of 2022.
I want to be sure that I believe that DeHaven prefers to refer to as they. If I'm looking at
thank you very much.
Oh God, this is going to be a struggle session. Oh no. Point of personal privilege. They prefer they.
It. Thank you.
Oh no.
Thank you, John,
no. This
for
is going to be
correcting
bad.
me. And yes, DeHaven, I'm very sorry
This
as
is
I'm
not
learning
good.
along that, but thank you. That's really important. That's a great model of what we're talking about is that, yes, I can see now because you're showing up on my screen, your preferred pronouns are they, them. So thank you very much,
This is going to turn
John,
into a struggle session before the end of
for
this
modeling
meeting.
what
Mark
this
my
day
words.
is exactly about being vulnerable, being open, and being honest and direct and addressing it. So thank you. Thank you. So before we get into the topic, to a little personal reflection, just wondering how you're feeling about today's topic. I can tell you that I'm personally in the green. I'm very excited to continue learning. And just like we do with our students, we should honor ourselves as learners. And this day is really for us. So wherever you are is wherever you are, but we hope that by the end, you are feeling green and excited about supporting our students as well. Before, again, I turned it over to DeHaven, this part of this conversation and how we're going through this is making me remember the courageous conversations about race protocol. We all approach conversations through different lenses. Some of us approach it through a moral compass. Some approach through an intellectual compass, some through a relationship, and some through emotions and feelings. We all use elements of each, but one of our approaches, it may recall these conversations we had last year. So I'm hoping, again, you see the continuation and the braiding and the connections from conversations we've had in the past to a conversation we're going to have today. And Mountain View's ready for this conversation, and I'm very excited. Last but not least, before I turn it over again, I thought this was a great personal reflection. This is adapted from also Courageous Conversations About Race. Take a moment of personal reflection, and on a scale of 1 to 5, how comfortable are you talking
How
about
comfortable are all of
transgender,
you
gender expansive
having a
issues?
talk about trans issues in elementary
So
school?
1 would, we don't really talk about
Please
this in
rank
my
your
house, and I'm not
comfortability in the
comfortable.
chat right now on a scale of 1 to
2,
5.
I would like to feel more comfortable,
How
but I'm
comfortable
not
are you
sure I
talking
am
about
ready yet.
transgender policy in elementary school
3, I have
without
been
any
part of
parents
gender
being present?
conversations, but I don't know what to
Let
say.
us know in the chat.
4, I feel pretty comfortable talking about gender with my friends. And 5, I am having gender conversations about gender with people inside and outside of my community.
Everyone,
I can tell you that having a 19 and a 23-year-old, I have lots of conversations at home, and I have been very lucky to have children who work with me, who correct me, and help me along. And so this is very personal for me, and I hope it's very personal for many of you too, because that's where I approach the relationship piece. This is about people. Our work is about people. And so how do we help everyone feel included? So that's just a moment of personal response. You don't need to put it in the chat, just for you. Okay. So with that said, I'm going to turn it now over to DeHaven. And again, thank you so much for being here, DeHaven. And I did link to the resources. It's in our PowerPoint, our slide deck for everybody. DeHaven has given us many resources, and I'm going to turn it over to them right now.
Awesome. Thank y'all. How are people doing this morning?
They, them.
We're all right. We're plucking along. Love it. Love it. Am I able to share my screen?
Director of
Okay.
School Programs and
I don't wanna
Resources.
Mess up the process.
I want to just hang on. I want to pause here.
Right.
So this person, they, let me just back up so we can see they's screen for a second. Okay. This person is the Director of School Programs and Resources. And I want to point that out to you because don't ever assume that the woke ideology is only coming through in like someone that has like a director of diversity, director of equity, director of like something woke sounding, because what a lot of schools now are starting to do is create very generic sounding titles for this stuff so that, quite frankly, the parents don't figure out what's going on and they don't get pissed off at the school. This person has an extremely generic title that does not indicate that they are doing anything woke. Okay? And it looks like Side by Side is probably going to be like one of these community organizations that the schools are working with. If you have kids in school, go onto the school district website, find out who their community partners are. It sounds to me already like Side by Side is going to be one of those like nonprofit or like social justice organizations that exists in the community that goes into the schools. You need to find out who your schools are working with. I've got a project that we're going to start doing called the Mind Map Project, which is basically going to start to map out who these community partners are that are working with schools like all over the country. That's another one of my 18,000 projects that's been on the list for about 87 years at this point, but we are going to start doing it pretty soon. But I just want to like let people know this, like you've got to pay attention. Don't just assume that because someone has a certain title that they like, don't assume their responsibilities, because a lot of places are getting really, really good at covering this stuff up.
For my screen, I am okay. I don't want to mess up the process. All right, cool. I don't know why this is still so awkward sometimes, like done this many times.
Because none of you know how to use technology.
One day it will feel natural. By the time it feels natural, everything will be in person. That's how that's going to work.
Everything already should have been in person
I'm
at this
really
point.
excited to spend time with y'all today, and I appreciate y'all showing up and already just like the clear energy that folks have. I always say that working with elementary schools
I
is quickly
appreciate your
becoming
energy today,
my
folks.
favorite
Thank you for
space
joining me.
because the energy and the passion and the openness and willingness to engage is just at a next level, and I just kind of plug into y'all's energy and take it off from there. So just really appreciate everything that y'all are doing for students and just being here in this space. So Cindy already kind of took my first 2 slides, so we can like zip through these, but and along with kind of gauging where folks are at in their comfort with LGBTQ topics, what I really want to encourage is for people to take care of yourselves as humans. The more I visit K through 12 schools, the more I witness firsthand how it seems every single staff person has 20 jobs under their one perceived job title. And I'm like, okay, you say you're the math teacher, but actually you are like those whole like 50 other things. So y'all hold so much, and that's just professionally. So personally, I'm sure everyone has a lot going on as well. And there are so many stressors happening right now in the world. So please take care of yourself. I'm hyperactive ADHD. I have my little basketball ready to go. So if you need to move, pace, play, drink water, put your head down, like do whatever you need. I always feel a lot of pressure whenever I go to trainings to try to take in all the knowledge and take like endless notes and all that. I'm here. You have the slides. You have all these resources. I'll send my email. I just want this.
Hey guys, I want to just note what Red Room Diecast, he's saying 44 people in chat. That's because this is not something I normally do on my main channel. So we're kind of splitting the chat today. And actually the better chat for today is going to be on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. Normally happy hours are an exclusive on my second channel. I'm just broadcasting them on both channels today to try to bring more people over to my second channel to introduce you guys to happy hour if you've never seen it before. So feel free to pop over to my second channel. You're going to get exactly the same content, better chat. But you can stay over there as well if you want to. It's entirely up to you. But that's why there might be a smaller chat, because I got it running on 2 different channels right now.
To be an ongoing conversation. So like Cindy said, please just show up to the best that you can today and give yourself grace. If
captions.
like
Yes, sorry. I always forget captions.
all,
Thank you for the reminder.
It's Friday. We're all in.
Oh, no captions available. Sorry.
So
I wish I could have them.
When I go to schools, one thing I also see is that folks are all over the place in this kind of spectrum of support, right? So I've met folks in trainings where people have literally come up to me and be like, hey, at the start of this training, I was an absolute hater. I was not okay with anything LGBTQ. And now I feel like I'm tolerant. I'm like, great, thank you. Like, thank you for sharing. We're all
no one has ever done that.
And then I've met folks very clearly like y'all, where we are allies, we are advocates, we are ready to go. The buy-in is there. We're rocking and rolling. And everyone kind of in between, right? And that's just school staff. So then if we bring in students, that might change the environment of our spectrum. If we bring in families, adults, guardians, that could change things as well. So I would love to hear from folks where y'all feel your school is just as a whole. If we take every level in, like, where do y'all think you're at? And this can absolutely be a fluid thing.
Main channel. Socialism Saturday is always on my main channel. Please feel free to just thank you for asking, Jan.
I very much want this to be like a conversation. As awkward as that is on Zoom.
Oh, good tip, Scott. I'll leave that up for a second. Yeah, normally I turn on captions, but they are not available today, so I do apologize for that. Welcome, Red Room Diecast.
Accepting. Okay.
Yeah, just because I still would like to educate myself more on topic and learn more about it. Had to talk to others about it.
So you feel like to move to that next level, you just need more knowledge, a little bit more conversation, support, things like that. And then it's like, cool, like let's take it to that next step. Cool. Is there anyone else I'd like to share? Thank you.
Haven, I feel like it's a hard question to answer because some people individually within the building probably see one side while others see another. So when you blend the whole school together, it's a rainbow.
Absolutely.
I think we know a lot of where we want to get to, or I hope we want to get to, but I'm finding that to be a hard question to answer as a whole school. because what I think is probably my own.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. And I mean, I think to your point, like that's exactly it. It is a hard question to ask, right? And we, at the end of the day, like I have no clue what's happening in the hearts and minds and souls of folks as we engage in these conversations, because folks could do things on the surface, but inside feel the exact opposite of everything that they're doing, right? So I think in my job, right, I very much believe in the power of education and the power of just honest spaces where
It's
we
all
can
good,
say, like,
Hellbound.
hey, this is where I'm at, these are my gaps, and meet people where they are, so that hopefully we can move into a different color, into a different space of helping our students, right? So my goal for today is we're going to go over some of these like key foundational concepts and just kind of dive into each one, and hopefully that provides a depth of knowledge. And then we're going to go over some risk factors, as we call them, where there's a little bit of statistics, things like that. But then we're going to enter protective factors. So we're ending on a happier note. And with that, we're going to go into breakout rooms and kind of brainstorm through a student scenario that I created through kind of combining several student stories that I've met. So hopefully by the end of today, you'll feel like you're able to, one, identify where you're at in your color, but also how can I move either myself or some aspects of the school into a new space. So maybe if we feel like we're accepting, cool, let's move to ally. If I feel like I'm an ally, awesome, let's rock and roll into that active role of being an advocate. So that's kind of the layout of today.
So I just want people to notice that
So
the school district is actively training and encouraging teachers to be advocates. Another word for advocate is activist. So when I talk about on our school investigation live streams, when I talk about really going into the professional development training the teachers are doing, making sure you understand what your tax dollars are paying for, this is what I'm talking about. Because stuff like this is going to be required training for teachers in a lot of school districts. And they just flat out said it. The ultimate like goal that they want to get people to is to be an advocate, which again really means activist.
This is our massive identity spectrums, right? So before we jump in, I just want to say that each of these lines are talking to one another, but they also exist separately, right? And I think what we are taught in our culture is that all of these lines are just kind of bunched together and they're all one messy blob. But in fact, each one has its own unique pulse vibe that needs to be acknowledged. And it's important to start breaking these pieces apart when we're serving LGBTQ youth. Also, I'm gonna try, I cannot like see it. I wanna like make my screen the whole thing, but I'm like having the worst time. Ah, that's not it. Never mind.
Socialists suck at
Sorry,
technology.
I'm trying to make my screen the whole screen. I just can't.
I think
because
it's
Zoom is
If you're
blocking.
bottom
I
right
think it's under
corner
slideshow, and then you can hit present from current slide.
or up at the top, the little play button in your orange bar that it looks like a little play
I
triangle.
know, I
and
just
then-
can't like,
You can't see that.
I can't see it because the Zoom thing is blocking it. So I'm kind of like, where am I? Am I about to draw on the slides? But I know that's like
Socialists
frustrating
suck
for
at
folks.
technology.
You might want
As
to
a
stop
general
screen
rule.
share and make it big and then share screen again. That
Right.
might help.
Thank y'all. All right, hold please. Thank you for your patience.
Your tax dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen. Congratulations, citizens of Virginia.
Better? Yes? Okay, there we go. Thank y'all. Y'all are smart. All right. We're off to a great start. We were thriving this morning. All right, so jumping in, right? So this is sex assigned at birth. So I don't know another way to enter this world, so I'll speak for myself. When I was born, I popped out of my mom and the doctors looked at my little naked baby body and they said, cool, this body is in the box of female, right? So this is based off of my physical shell, my body, my genitalia, my chromosomes, my hormones, all of these fancy things. So historically and presently, we have these two boxes to account for all of the diversity of human bodies. So we have male and we have female. So with this, right, we immediately have this assumption that we have these two bodies where every single person will fit. But unfortunately, what we have missed is that there's incredible diversity along the human
Who
body
says little
spectrum,
naked
and a lot of
body in
bodies
a
don't neatly fit into these
employee
two
training?
categories. So that massive umbrella term is called intersex. And so I think the rough
It is
estimate is
creepy.
1 in every 2,000, 1 in every 1,600. Another, like, I'm a very visual person. Another way to look at it is that there are as many folks with red hair as there are folks who are intersex. Do not go up to someone who has red hair and ask if they're intersex. Like, stats don't work like that. Don't do that. Probably will not go well. But I think it's just to say that this is much more common than we give it credit, right? And what's interesting is, if you go into like the history of the intersex movement, is that in some states, like I hear California pop up a lot, especially in like the 60s, 70s, is that a lot of times surgeries were done to manipulate the body to fit into these two categories, even though there was nothing physically wrong. So for example, a baby could have external genitals that are kind of ambiguous, right? It's like, I don't know quite where to put you. So if I'm reading this baby and I'm like, I think this is a penis, but I'm not quite sure, doctors would actually take a ruler, and if the genitals didn't hit X amount of length, then the body was physically altered to be like, okay, cool, we're putting you in the female box. But again, there's nothing physically wrong. It's just like our bias, our discomfort, and how do I put you? I need you to fit neatly. So a lot of work has been done to just try to create this pause and be like, hey, is there anything wrong? No. All right. So let's leave this baby. Let's like just let this body be, and we'll see what this person wants as they get older, as they identify, right? So if you hear about like intersex community, that's what all of those movements are about. Do y'all know Jamie Lee Curtis, the actress? I think she's actually intersex, or at least a massive advocate for the intersex community, just to put a face to that. So with sex assigned at birth, right, again, this is our physical body, our outward shell. So then we move to gender identity, and gender identity is our internal understanding of how I understand myself as a gendered being, right? Which is going to be very broad, very personalized. But what's key is that this is my internal world. So I can look at someone.
Deborah,
and
they
make
don't
assumptions
provide
all day long
sources.
about how they identify,
They don't
but
provide
until I
sources.
ask,
What are
I
you
don't
talking
know.
about?
So with gender
Never in the
identity,
history of Happy Hour
assumption
have
is
they
that my
provided
sex assigned at
sources.
birth and my gender identity are going
We've
to
watched
align,
hundreds of
right?
these.
And if you experience this, congrats, you are cisgender. So cisgender is not a slang or a hate term or anything like
They're
that.
not talking
It's
to
just
students, they're talking to teachers.
Name an experience that a lot of folks have of their sex assigned at birth and their gender identity line up, they follow the nice little arrows. I also heard from a very smart Latin teacher that cis is kind of saying like it's Latin for same, like the arrows are lining up. I was a very average Latin student, so I was like, I'm just going to take your word for it, friend. So if you do not experience this alignment, the giant umbrella term is transgender. So with trans, totally fine to say transgender. You want to avoid saying transgendered or transgendering or like verbing it or making it a past tense. I was watching a
I make it a
show
verb
from
all the
early
time,
2000s, and
but
they were
I'm not
saying,
a very
like,
good ally.
transgenders, and I was like, oh no, let's not say we did, friend. Language has changed a lot, but you just want to use that person first language, right? So saying someone is a trans person of trans experience, anything like that, totally fine.
A person of trans experience. I haven't heard that before.
Trans youth, I think what's really important is that historically we have this narrative, even presently still, we have this narrative that a person is going to go from one side to the other, right? If I was assigned male at birth and I'm a person of trans experience, then I'm going to transition all the way.
Yes, they are, Redwood Elf.
I've always felt myself to be,
yes,
or vice
they
versa,
are.
right? And what I'm seeing more and more, especially as Gen Z slowly starts taking over the world, is that the trans experience can be anything along this line, right? I don't have to go from one side to the other, this kind of binary journey. I can be at any point along this line and I'm still trans, I'm still part of this community if I say I am. So I think that can just be really powerful and helpful when working with.
I'm part of this community if I say I am. That's what they just said. That's all that's required. I'm part of this community if I say I am.
Youth who are exploring their gender identity, if they feel this pressure, this expectation to go from one side to the other, it's like, hey man, like, what's your truth? What feels good for you? What feels right? Like, you do you, and don't follow like the script that you might feel pressured to. So non-binary, non-binary is an umbrella term underneath the trans umbrella. Does that make sense? I need a visual for this because I feel like folks are sort of like, what? But someone who is non-binary essentially is anyone who feels their gender identity does not fit into the boxes of man, woman, boy, girl. Again, very, very broad. So with non-binary, this could be someone who feels like they don't fit into those binary boxes, right? Maybe feel like they're floating in between. So you might see.
I want to really recommend that if you haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, please watch the clip from Socialism Saturday that I posted on my main channel today. And you can find that it's something like, it says something like trans politics is designed to replace feminism. And this is a really important point to understand. This was from Socialism Saturday, but we do Socialism Saturday. Saturday is 6 p.m. on my main channel. And in Socialism Saturday last week, what we learned is that trans politics is explicitly designed to replace feminism because they want everyone to be non-binary. Like, people say, like, oh, you're saying trans, like you're not like you're transitioning from one to the other. No, trans for them means transform. They're trying to get rid of gender entirely. They want everyone to be non-binary. And I know this sounds crazy, but if you watch Socialism Saturday, you'll understand. In the Communist Manifesto, it calls for the abolition of the biological family, because as long as we have the biological family, that means people will always have loyalties that are more important to them than the state. If you are genetically connected and loyal to people based on birth, based on biology, that means you will have a harder time endearing to mommy or daddy government, okay? So what they're trying to do is actively get rid of this idea of gender entirely. That's why everyone is non-binary all of a sudden. That's why they say she, they. Everyone's using they pronouns because they're trying to abolish the gender binary. You know, I say this with all due respect. It doesn't matter what these things mean to you. The purpose of this is to understand what these words mean to them and how they're using them and what their plans are and how they're accomplishing what they're accomplishing. You need to put your own stuff aside. Your definition in this circumstance does not matter. All that matters is what they are defining it as and how they see the world. Oh, Moxie, you haven't been to happy hour before. They cover this stuff in elementary school classrooms all the time. Yes, if you are a math teacher, you would need to teach this information. Go look up the videos that I've done about anti-racist math on my main channel. This stuff is taught in math class. We've actually covered that in happy hour. Look up the happy hour about the Philadelphia school district. Again, that's going to be on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. This is quite literally taught in math class.
Youth who start the day saying, hey, my pronouns are he, him. By the end of the day, I'm feeling more feminine, so she, her. Or maybe I'm feeling like I'm a combination of both. And I'm sort of creating my own experience. If you don't know Janelle Monáe, the artist, actress, check out Janelle Monáe. She's a lovely, awesome human. But Janelle Monáe came out as non-binary, gender expansive, and vocalizes that they feel there's sort of this like gender experience. They don't want to follow a script. They want the freedom to create their own experience, right? And so for me, like me, myself, and I, as a non-binary person, I very much enjoy that freedom and that exploration, right? Like in my head, my gender identity is a 16-year-old skater boy, but I cannot skate. So I own a lot of Vans and I pretend that I'm like able to do all these things. And I'm like a surfboard skater person. And I'm so far from that. It's really quite incredible, but awesome at buying clothes to create that illusion, right? But what I love about the label of non-binary and they, them is I get to create my own brand, my own vibe of like what I call masculinity 2.0. I get to sort of find this balance of being able to be this wannabe surfer dude and then have a girls' night with my wife as we eat pizza and watch Gilmore Girls and Grey's Anatomy for the 100th time, right? But I feel like it just gives me this freedom to do that versus having the labels of woman or man where I'm just sort of like, how do I make this
This
fit?
is a training in an elementary school.
Chance to do that. And so with non-binary, really any of the LGBTQ identities you might encounter, I think what's really important is that one, you don't have to know all of the identities, right? Like I work at an LGBTQ center. I have been at pride events where youth have come up to me and said like, hey, this is how I identify. And I'm like, awesome. Never heard of it in my life. Like that is beautiful. Like, yes, you do you. I'm going to write it down and Google it and jump on TikTok to become relevant again, but I have no clue what you're talking about. And I think it's important to just name that you don't have to know everything and you can still honor and respect them and see them as humans, right? I'm sure if I had the chance to get to know all of y'all, there are pieces of your identities, of y'all's journey that I can't totally connect with or honor. But what I can do is learn and push myself to grow and empathize and connect and do the best I can to see and honor you as a full human, right? So if the whole like non-binary trans are just like, what is happening? Like, cool. Name where you're at. Is there a way to continue to grow? And above all, we can honor folks by using their chosen name, chosen pronouns, all of that cool stuff. So all this makes sense so far?
Sure.
I'm not trying to go too fast. I'm just trying to be mindful of time.
Does this make sense so far?
Okay, cool. So
for all
with
my happy
gender,
hour
right,
noobs,
we have these three kind of key dimensions. So we have body, identity, social. So each one
Cider,
of these
you should do this.
work
Hang on.
together to create the sense.
I'm not trying to influence a high school student to play a trick on his counselor to be our spy, but I'm just saying, Cider, if you come to the decision on your own that this is a good idea, then I would be open to hearing the outcome of that. You can, oh God, this is awful. I can't do this. I cannot advise a high school student to do this live on the internet. I can't. I'm going to be a Don't listen to me, Cider. I'm not trying to get you in trouble.
Of congruence to create this sense of like harmony, of euphoria.
That was incredibly irresponsible. Don't follow my example.
What we want to do is we want to find ways to work with trans youth so that they're feeling this sense of harmony. They're being seen as who they truly are. They're being able to connect with their body and their identity at kind of every level. So with body, and I think body is particularly where we as a culture get really fixated on the trans community in general, regardless of age, is this relationship between a person's gender and their body, right? So unfortunately, I know youth who have been asked really, really invasive questions of like, what's in your pants? Kind of prove to me that you are who you say you are, right? And it's like, hey, let's remove this link of body equals gender and instead understand that gender is going to change on my culture, on my community, on where I'm at in time and space and geography and all of these different things.
Exactly.
Like
exactly,
created,
Brooklyn
right?
Way. I in no way, shape, or form advise minors to pretend to be trans at their school in order to spy on their communist teachers. I do not condone this at all. It'd be pretty great though, but I don't condone it at all. All right, guys, mount that like button for me, please.
So what we want to do is help youth find this sense of harmony in their own body and figure out ways to help make them feel at home in their body, right? And then with identity, this is a person's internal experience and naming of their gender. So how we feel, understand, and experience it. So again, for me, that would be that 16-year-old skater boy, which is also rough because I'm 30. So I should probably look at that, right? Probably gonna have a midlife crisis when I turn 35.
This person that is being paid to do training in an elementary school just admitted that they are 35 but pretending to be a 16-year-old skater boy. That's unbelievable. Blue the Boss Boston Terrier, these people are obsessed with children while constantly asking, why do you care so much? Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm not going to misgender, I'm going to be appropriate. They just said that they are 35 pretending to be a 16-year-old boy as part of their gender fucking evolution in a training for an elementary school.
But it's helping youth kind of find their label, find their home, and figure out like, cool, you have all these feelings, all this is happening inside of you. Let's name it and identify it so that we can figure out what you need and find your community. And then social, how others perceive us. So with trans youth in particular, I think this is massive. This is where they spend a lot of time, is trying to get others to see them as who they truly are. So like, for example, if I was working with a trans youth in one of our support groups, and we were taking them all on a trip, and I had their legal name, which was their dead name, their birth name, right? And I had no clue what their dead name was, because it's absolutely no reason for me to know this, right? And so I needed their legal name though for the plane ticket as we were taking them on this trip. And they were telling me that their grandparents only call them by their legal name, and that the grandparents never use their chosen name. And I'm like thinking to myself, it's like your grandparents are forcing this version of you onto you, right? Instead of just seeing you as you truly are. And so with trans youth, they're constantly trying to figure out, what is it going to take for others to truly accept me, to truly see me? Does that make sense? And so with that, I think sometimes trans youth can kind of follow these very traditional scripts, right? Like they can be this almost like stereotypical
You should
boy,
definitely not
girl
try that out
in order to be seen as they are, because they're trying to avoid being
absolutely
misgendered.
not.
So again, I think that's where giving them some space.
Cider should definitely not wear a White Lives Matter t-shirt to school. That would be a horrible idea.
Be a boy and do all of these things. And this can be even more intense if you have a youth who's non-binary or gender expansive, because yes, it can be cool to create your own script, and it can be absolutely terrifying if you're 8 years old and you're like, I have no clue what this looks like, right? How do I navigate? How do I relate to people? And so just being that voice of like, hey, like, let's look at some videos, representation, things like that, to help you find your footing so that you can do what feels right for you. And so again, all of these are working together to build that sense of euphoria, and we're trying to lessen incongruence or dysphoria.
You're trying to build a sense of euphoria.
So with incongruence or dysphoria, we have kind of these three main wheelhouses, right? So we have body, mind, social again. So again, we have body, which is I feel uncomfortable with my body, right? Like this is not my home. This is not where
Cider is a role
my
model.
body should look as
he is the teenager all teenagers should follow.
Right? For some youth, this can be really, really intense. For others, they're like, like I'm pretty chill. Like my body's my body. Like it's doing what I need it to do. I really don't have this disconnect, feel like I was born in the wrong body. And then I've met some youth where it is just off the charts, incredibly high. So don't assume that they immediately have this disconnect of their body, right? And I think one thing that can be really powerful is showing diversity of the human bodies. Like, for example, I know a number of young trans guys who are like, my hips are too wide to be a man. And I'm like, there are some very curvy cisgender men on this planet. Like, we only see like the Batman shouldered, super lean, wasted type person. But I think just showing them different bodies and just how they all exist can be helpful for them. Mind dysphoria, so discomfort with how you experience emotions or thoughts. So for example, kind of the stereotypical of boys don't cry, or girls can't be aggressive or leaders or things like that, like whatever internalized messaging you have. A lot of times youth can just really take that to the
Mind
next level
dysphoria.
if they're
I've never heard of
trying to
mind
figure out
dysphoria
their
before.
home
That's a
in
new
their
one.
trans experience. And so helping them just give permission to be like, you can experience all of these vast emotions and have all of these thoughts. Like, let's not link one thing to gender. And I think all of these can be helpful for just students regardless of their gender journey. So if you have like, I'm sure y'all can think of some cisgender students who are struggling with each of these points, right? And so I think this can just be taken to help all students regardless of their gender identity. And then lastly, we have social dysphoria. So discomfort again with how others see us. So I need to wear a dress so that I'm seen as a girl. I was working with a young trans girl a while back, and she used to fish, but said that she no longer fishes. And I was like, you know, why? Do you not have equipment? Do you not have access to water? What's happening? And she said, well, girls don't fish. And I was like, tell me more, right? Like I grew up in Mississippi where everyone's covered in fish guts left and right? Like everyone's off hunting on the weekends and stuff. And I was like, if you want to fish, right? Let's talk about this. And I mean, but I totally get it, because her fear is that if she goes to fish, she'll be perceived as a boy and then she'll be misgendered, right? And
oh, I didn't realize that, Cider. That's cool.
As that can be, it's also like, do what brings you joy and passion and like lights you up. So let's find a balance and work on coping skills so that if you are misgendered, you're able to handle it and do the things you love, because we don't want you to be limiting and making yourself smaller. I want you to be expanding and like doing all the things that make your heart sing, right? So with types of transition or evolution, these are 3 large wheelhouses that can be used to help interrupt any sense of dysphoria or incongruence that a youth might be feeling. And you can do all of these at the, not all of them, but you can do a lot of them at the elementary school level. So for example, name.
Oh my God.
Social realm.
Oh, I knew it was coming. Holy shit. This school actually brought in someone to train the teachers how to trans the students in elementary school. Let's just listen to that part again. We're going to want just a little bit. I'm going to grab a clip at the same time. We're going to do double duty. I knew it was coming too. I did.
I want you to be expanding and like doing all the things that make your heart sing, right? So with types of transition or evolution, these are 3 large wheelhouses that can be used to help interrupt any sense of dysphoria or incongruence that a youth might be feeling. And you can do all of these at the, not all of them, but you can do a lot of them at the elementary school level. So for example, name, pronouns, and that social realm, this is where a lot of us are going to be living. So before I continue, I think it's important to know your lane, right? So if you are a school nurse, cool, might be helpful for you to know if a youth is taking puberty blockers or hormones or anything like that. But we don't need to be asking these questions, right? Again, like what knowledge do I really need versus what is curiosity? So I used to run our trans support group. I used to run our middle school support group where we have a lot of trans youth. Never once did I ask youth if they're taking hormones, if they're on puberty blockers, if they've had any surgeries, because it's none of my business. Like instead they would say, hey, I'm maybe about to start hormones. It's like, awesome. How are we feeling? Are we anxious? Are we excited? Like, what support do you need? Even then I took it into the social realm, because the last thing folks need is for me to be in charge of their medical care. It would end horribly for everyone involved. So my lane is that social world. And I'm sure that's where a lot of y'all are as well. So honoring youth's chosen name, chosen pronouns, helping them find clothes that are affirming, underclothes, that could also be things like perfume or hair clips, hair ties, scrunchies. Like the possibilities are endless of what could just really make a youth feel super, super euphoric and happy. This could also be interest, like giving them permission to play with different toys. If they're playing a game with their friends, allowing them to enter this amount.
The whole goal is to make youth be euphoric. Hang on one sec. Create new document. Got to get that clip. Got that clippy clip. All right. Excellent. Yes, Redwood the Elf. So they want to turn grade school age children into lifelong cripples with surgery and drugs. Yes, they do. That's why they start transing the kids in elementary school. Guys, mount the like button if you have not already. If you are watching on my main YouTube channel, I want to let you know that Happy Hour is a stream that I do on Fridays. On my second channel, I'm streaming it on my main channel today to try to lure some of you in to the insane world of Happy Hour. Yes, it is showing up on YouTube twice, Kurt, because right now I'm streaming it on 2 different YouTube channels because I'm trying to introduce Happy Hour to a new audience. If you are on my primary channel, I would welcome you coming over to youtube.com/activelyunwoke. The link should be in the description somewhere. I'm also streaming right now on Odyssey, on Rockfin, on Rumble, on Gitter, some other places as well, I think. But normally we only do this on my second channel, but I'm trying to introduce it to a new audience today. And so I would welcome you guys to join us over on Actively Unwoke. You can also stay put where you are, whatever is clever, whatever you want to do. I'm seeing your chats regardless of what YouTube channel you're on. Please mount that like button for me and let's keep going. We are watching a actual recorded professional development training from an elementary school. So this really happened in an elementary school not that long ago in March. If it can happen in one elementary school, it can probably happen in others. And I want you guys to see what they're talking about when they don't think anyone is watching them.
Imaginary role of like, no, like you identify as a girl and you want to play the mom. Cool, like you get to do that. Like just giving them permission to play and explore. And then binders or breast implants, this would be more so at the probably middle school, high school level. But if you have a youth,
you want them to get breast implants at the middle school level?
Essentially really, really intense sports bras where they just flatten breast tissue to create the illusion of a more masculine chest. Breast implants, if you just wear like any sort of training bra, regular bra, you can just get these like foam inserts, silicone inserts that you just put into the bra to create.
Oh, we're not talking about real breast implants.
Totally safe to use. But it can be a very powerful tool to help youth. And then lastly, we have legals, that's name change, gender markers.
Thank God for small favors.
And with any school, we always encourage like folks to look at what is actually like a legal document versus just a student ID or a roster, right? And looking at how can we honor youth's chosen names so that we're lessening any misgendering and lessening any sense of incongruence or dysphoria. Okay, so that was a lot of information. So again, we have our physical body.
But then you'll never have to wait those 5 minutes again, Gray Pill. We'll see you soon.
Expression. So how do I dress my body? Because we're not allowed to run around in our birthday suits, right? That would be quite scandalous. So with gender expression, this is everything from hair, makeup, clothes, interests, like everything in our culture is gendered in one way or another. I love Target.
Things are pretty tame right now, Grandma Nate. Don't worry about it, but I appreciate it.
Get me to get one of their credit cards. I'm like, get away from me. But if you go to Target, right, like I love their toy section because they have like black, gray, and then they have neon pink, purple, and then Target has this kind of like retro toy wooden section where I'm like, cool, we'll just take the little stick and wheel and like run down the street. Like, but toys, clothes, everything is gendered, right? And with gender expression, I think this is one of the most overlooked things because I think it's everywhere and nowhere, right? So what I mean by that is everyone in this room, right, has a gender expression, whether we're aware of it or not. And I can look at each one of you and based off of your gender expression, assume that I know what your gender identity is, right? So I can look at you and say like, oh, you have long hair, you're wearing a dress, you're wearing makeup, must be a woman, therefore must use she, her pronouns. But I have no clue, right? Because I didn't ask. So one of the most powerful things we can do just right out of the gate is to create that pause by asking, hey, what are your pronouns? Or I share my pronouns, or I have a sign in my office, or an announcement on my dry erase board in my classroom. But anything to just create this dialogue, this conversation where I'm trying to just honor my students and give space for things to expand. If you're working with like tiny humans, is there a way you can even make it a game? So we start the day with this bizarre pronoun game because you're a ridiculous
Let's
creative
play
teacher.
pronoun games
came up with a way to
tiny humans.
Ask you their pronouns in a fun and engaging way where
Nothing
they can
could
move
go
and get
wrong
the
with that
wigglies out,
idea.
and we can start the day and be more grounded, right?
Nothing
It
could
could
go
also be totally
wrong.
chaotic. Please let me know how it goes if you create such a game. But regardless of someone's gender identity, if their gender expression is not fitting into the kind of norm or the expectations of their community, they're going to experience really high rates of bullying or harassment. I'm sure y'all see this in your school where you have that student who maybe can't afford the North Face jacket, and so they get a lot of bullying for that, or their hair is a different color or not the right texture or whatever it is. Like, students can find the tiniest, biggest thing to zero in on, but finding ways to just create this diversity, this acceptance of like, hey, let's stop like pressuring all of us to dress and present in a certain way. Let's give permission for students to present in a whole variety of ways. That's just going to help every single person, regardless of their sexual or gender identity. And then lastly, with gender expression, folks who identify as cisgender men or masculine folks and they present in a more feminine way are going to experience very, very high rates of bullying and harassment. So, like, again, for me, myself, and I, when I was growing up in the early 90s, it was like Spice Girl era, right? Like girl power, like Scary Spice all the way. So this was like a very convenient time because I was assumed to be a girl, but I was naturally interested in masculine things. Like I always had Power Rangers. I was running around shirtless playing football. Like I was labeled a tomboy.
Did you?
So I'm.
Oh no! You were labeled a tomboy. Oh, not that. This person literally just said that they were interested in masculine things because they watched the Power Rangers. Didn't Power Rangers have like a pink Power Ranger? Wow.
As a young girl who's empowered because I like masculine things. But
So
if we
what?
switch things and I was, let's say I was born a boy, assumed to be a boy, but I wanted to be a cheerleader more than anything, I would not have
Boys
gotten
are cheerleaders
praise and high fives and celebration, right? And I think that very much is true.
Do these
to
people
this
understand
day
there are
of
male cheerleaders?
Our culture, whether we like to
Like
admit it
in
or
real
not,
life?
does not like or really celebrate feminine things.
What are you
like
talking about? There was a
feminine
pink fucking
folks
Power
do masculine
Rangers.
things, but not when masculine folks do feminine things.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
So like there's a young trans guy now who's ridiculously talented with makeup. Like he could easily be on those competition shows because he can do like the animal prints and all of that.
This is
But he
being
never
trained in
wears
elementary
makeup
school.
when he's out and about because one, he knows he'll probably be misgendered, and two, he's like, guys don't wear makeup, right? And so it's like
guys do wear makeup.
Like, as a trans youth, like he has this.
What are you talking about? Have these people never heard of David Bowie? Like, men have worn makeup for... Have these people never studied like France back in the day when the men wore more makeup than women did? Men have never... Yeah, guy liner was a thing in the 90s when this person says she grew up. They grew up. Sorry.
Internalize almost like misogyny of like, no, like this aspect of me is bad and I can only engage in it in certain moments. So I think this is really where we have to start looking at our own biases of if you have
or anything in the 80s at all. Exactly, Patrick.
Is to be a boy but loves to wear
anything in the 80s
dresses, like just loves it, makes his heart sing. It's like, okay, can I give this child space to just exist and present in this way? And it's like, yes, you are Elsa. Let's sing Frozen and dance it out and like tell me about your dress. Like, let's just like run with it, right? Or I was talking to an elementary student, or not elementary, an elementary teacher, and she said that she has a young boy who loves to read in this giant dollhouse that they have in the classroom. Like he just feels very safe in it and just loves this like universe that he's created in this dollhouse. And that students were really making fun of him. And she was like, well, what do I do? And I was like, well, how would you handle this if there was any other instance of bullying? And she was like, oh, well, I would interrupt and lean in and use this as a teachable moment and tell the students to like back off and let this kid play in the dollhouse. It's like, you just done, like that's it, right? You just answered your own question, right? And I think like we just overthink things, but giving that kid permission to like, you can be a boy and play with dolls. You can be a girl and play with Hot Wheels. Like, let's just interrupt these biases that we have and let's start removing
People
gender
didn't have these
from all of
biases
these
until
daily
people like
languages,
you
'cause at the end of
started
the day,
teaching people these
probably just doesn't
biases.
matter
I played with fucking
that
Hot Wheels.
you're a person
I played
in a
with
male
G.I.
body and you want to
Joes.
play with dolls. Like, just go for it. And then lastly, trans girls, trans women have the highest rates of violence.
Yeah, do these people
particularly
never see
if
women
we bring in
wrestling?
race in class. So Black trans women, the rates of violence and harassment are off the chart. The life expectancy of a Black trans woman, for example, is around 30 years old, as far as like the research has shown with that. And that's again, like multiple systems are coming together.
They
Because
just
with
made
this,
that up.
right,
I'm
like,
sorry. That was fake.
I'm kind of moving up and down that sort of privilege hierarchy. So again, for me, myself, and I'm white, I'm able-bodied, I'm educated, I'm non-binary, part of the trans community, but I present in a masculine way.
You don't
I can
present in
sort
a
of
masculine
adapt
way.
my gender
I'm
expression
sorry.
depending
There
on
is,
my
hang on.
environment to make
I don't mean to be a bitch, but there is no universe in which you are presenting in a masculine way. I am more masculine than you are. There is no universe that you present as as masculine. Does anyone else think that this person represents masculinity in any way? I mean, maybe in the land of make-believe, but no, that is not real. That is made up.
myself feel safer. So I'm sort of in a weird way moving up that privilege hierarchy versus when I talk to young trans women, particularly young trans women of color, now I'm moving down and I'm having these multiple isms come at my body to really impact my lived experience and how I'm navigating the world. So a lot of times when I go to schools, as we visit like gender sexuality alliances, things like that, when I visit schools, I see a lot of white students, even in schools that dominantly serve Black and brown students, because again, I have that privilege and that protection to say, this is how I identify, right? And I see a lot of particularly white trans students or white non-binary.
She's working directly with
masculine
students.
presenting
Think about
students.
that.
'Cause again, is it safer for me to say this versus
Again, if you just joined us, we are watching a real training that took place at a real elementary school in Virginia back in March. And this person is working directly with students. That's what they're talking about right now. I just really want that to sink into people. This is not theoretical. This is the real thing.
if I'm a young brown trans girl, what's the risk of me saying like, hey, this is who I am, this is how I identify? Does all of this make sense? Okay. Sometimes I feel like I'm just rambling and I'm literally feel like I'm talking to myself. So just want to make sure, checking in. So we get asked a lot kind of how young is too young. And the research shows that between 3 to 4 years old, youth have a pretty solid understanding of who they are. Like, this is my gender, right? So if you have a 3-year-old that can whip out a PowerPoint presentation and name all of this, they should probably skip K through 12 and just go to college and become a president, right? Like, let's just be honest. So if you are working with tiny humans, right, like at the elementary level,
she's saying people can be trans at 3 years old.
Is exploration.
She is advising. This is about an hour away from Fairfax County. It's Mountain View Elementary School in Virginia. This person is advising teachers that children can be trans at 3 years old.
Is play, is I'm using language and names and different things like that to try to communicate. So for example, when I was like around this age. My birth name is Helen. And I would run up to my mom and my mom would say, hey, Helen, like, come here. And I'd be like, no, I'm Max. And she'd be like, okay, what's up, Max? And I'd be Max for a couple weeks and then I'd go back to Helen. And she was just like, alrighty, child, just go play. Like, you make me sleepy. But she just gave me this space to be. Like, there was no judgment. She had no clue what this was. She thought I was just being a kid. And she just gave me permission to play and explore any part of myself that I wanted to. There was no judgment. And I look back now on that time and I'm like, that is a gift that so few youth have, especially like early 90s where this language was not this common thing, right? And it really wasn't until I got into older elementary school that my peers and teachers were kind of this voice of being like, no, this isn't okay. And you need to present and express yourself.
No, I want to talk about this point that Diane B is saying. She's just a grifter. No, she's not. The reason that might surprise people that I'm saying that, but she's not a grifter. Oh, gratitude always. I haven't seen you in a minute. Welcome back. Okay, the reason I say she's not a grifter is accidental misgender. I didn't mean to. This person believes everything they're saying. They really do. And I don't think that we can classify someone as a grifter if they're true believers of the ideology. A grifter is someone who will say anything they need to in order to make money and gain status. That's not what this person is doing. They are a true believer because they have been indoctrinated into this ideology, probably in college. And now this is what they do with their lives. But I wouldn't say that they're a grifter.
This way. And I was like, oh, okay, like, let me like kind of button this down. And
I remember
I'll
people from my
be
chat
what
that are
y'all want me
regulars.
to be, and we'll just kind of put Max away for a while.
You're also
But
kind of a pain in the ass.
When I see
which I say
teachers
with
that give
endearment.
students the space to just play,
And you know it's
be,
true
it's
anyway,
like
gratitude
you're going
always.
to create a culture where students, again, regardless of their gender identity, are just able to explore. And I think that's so key, especially for students who, especially if they're male-bodied and expected to present in this way, like how powerful to be like, no, like, let's talk about our emotions. Let's play and learn how to be nurturers and caretakers. Because it's also interesting in the research is that even as babies, the language that is used for us is very different. So for male babies, it's a lot of like verbs and actions, like we're in a Nike commercial, right? And then for female babies, we use language around consent and emotions and like, oh, I'm gonna touch you now, and what are you feeling? Like even as babies, it's kind of this like emotional intelligence is already starting. So we're sort of putting folks on these two different paths, and then there's just this massive gap because a lot of like masculine students aren't given that language of emotions, and let's label what's happening and all of this. So I think just once we start breaking these up, we're allowing
so this
so
is
much
close to
expansion
home
for all students. And you could see higher rates of young girls going into math and science and young boys going into, I don't know, like counseling or things like that. Like we're just kind of creating this divide. And then we have our non-binary gender expansive students. They can just run around in circles and do all 20 things at once, right? Like the possibilities are endless. Are there any questions on this slide? I just want to
see you, Kurt. Thank you for dropping by.
And check the chat too. Yes, Jeff. Oh, you raised your hand. That's so formal. I love it.
I was wondering, because one thing that I've dealt with and maybe other teachers have as well is being in an elementary school where students might feel comfortable expressing themselves at school in a way that they're not comfortable at home.
Yes.
That maybe have
Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm going to preemptively clip this because I already know I'm going to go back and clip it. So let me just get the clip set up so we don't have to do this again for a second time. I know you all are with me. Sometimes when we watch these trainings, I make clips on the fly because it's quite frankly just easier. Thank you for your patience.
Raise your hand. That's so formal. I love it.
I was wondering, because one thing that I've dealt with and maybe other teachers have as well is being in an elementary school where students might feel comfortable expressing themselves at school in a way that they're not comfortable at home,
Yes.
that maybe have anxiety or concern about, I want to be identifying this way, but I don't want mom to know about it. I don't know if, I'm guessing that, I don't know how common that is, or if you had thoughts on that you could share.
Yeah. I feel like navigating guardians, parents, the adults in youth's lives, like that's the question, right? And I'm still figuring that out. So one of the resources that I shared with y'all, it's called like Connecting with Families, something like that. And I created it alongside an organization called He, She, Ze, and We. And I can type that out. And He, She, Ze, and We is a parent family support group for families that have trans, non-binary, gender expansive students in their families. And so what they do is provide education, right? So we created this document that's kind of like a script, for lack of a better word, just to help out some of those moments and just to try to facilitate, like, okay, how would I handle this, right? So I think there's multiple pieces. So I think first, knowing what are the policies and procedures to protect you and have your back as an employee, right? So going to your supervisor, your principal, all of these things, and knowing that county, yep, Cindy's hand is raised. So knowing all of those policies so that you feel backed as a employee. Because I think there's nothing worse than feeling like, wait, am I risking my job, right, by honoring this student and trying to give them a space to affirm? So just creating that plan. I think the younger the youth, the more you kind of have to make certain decisions, just because the youth might not have the language to navigate all of these things. But just kind of asking that youth, like, okay, cool. So you said that you feel anxious to dress this way when you're home and you feel like your mom isn't supported. Can you tell me a little bit more about that? And maybe we bring in our counseling staff and we just have a chat, right? But regardless, when you're in my classroom, you can totally dress in this way and you can play. And what name do you want me to call you? Oh, cool. What's up, Jamie? Like, and I'm affirming this youth, right? And I'm de-escalating, I'm giving them permission, all of these little things. And if parents, guardians find out and they're like, hey, like, I don't like this, it's like, okay, cool. How about we have that conversation with our counseling team and bring our principal involved, and we can just explain why we're doing this. We're not trying to lie to you. We're not trying to deceive. We're just trying to honor your kiddo, because we know the best practices, and the best practices are for us to honor your youth. Cindy, is there anything you'd like to add? I can see your hand.
First, I lowered my hand and then I started talking. So thank you, DeHaven. And Jeff, thank you for the question. I think it's very important and relevant. And Marcy put in the chat as well, struggling with, how do we balance at home and school? And the policy is very clear on this. And DeHaven, I think you're exactly right. Right now, we're honoring and affirming in class. And it may be fluid in class and we go along with that. But really here, and I'm going to read from the policy, it says, some gender expansive students have not yet talked to their parents about their gender identity or do not want their parents to know about their gender expansive status based on safety concerns or fear about lack of acceptance. And so the first conversation is case by case. It's talking with the child in class. It's talking with us. It's talking with the counselors. And then we'll talk about that on a case-by-case basis. But the policy is very clear that, we honor pronouns, names, that fluidity in school, and involve the families when the child is ready and when we have that conversation. So
yeah.
Does that help, Jeff? Okay. And I think we have some other teachers who have children in their class that are exploring evolving. That was the word you used, DeHaven, when I asked about this. The word is like when they're evolving. So, all right, I'm gonna put my hand down and go back to DeHaven.
Bethany, do you have?
All right, hang on. Oh my God. I told you I needed to clip that. I told you. I knew exactly where that was going because we watch Happy Hour and this shit happens every single effing week. What we just saw was the school saying that they're not going to inform the parents at the elementary school level if the kid is going to them and saying, I'm gonna be trans today, or I'm playing with my gender identity, or whatever the hell. If the child comes out as trans at school, the school is not going to inform the parents, is going to affirm whatever the child wants, and they're going to wait until the child is ready. And if the parents are pissed off about that, then too bad, so sad. Yes, we are talking about elementary age kids. And they just said it. They think they know better than the parents. They think they're kids. I knew it was going to be a good idea to clip that. And just so you, if you're new to happy hour and you think that this is the exception to the rule, no. We see this every single week. We watch happy hour every single week on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. If you're joining me on my main channel right now, welcome. I'm doing a special broadcast on my main channel to try to pull more people into happy hour, because it's really important that people see this. Come over to my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. We do this every Friday at 5 p.m. We drink while we're doing it, which makes it bearable. That's why it's called happy hour. But this is not unusual. What you just heard in terms of, this is a teacher trainer that tax dollars are paying for, talking about school policy, and an administrator backing them up, saying, if students come out as trans at school, we're going to talk to those students. We're going to affirm their gender identity. It's not our job to tell the parents. We have to protect the privacy of the students. This is not uncommon. I'm glad you all get to experience that with me. We have about 40 minutes left of this. Let's keep going, ladies and gentlemen. Please mount that like button.
I have a question, a comment.
In 2012, I had a student come from another school, and I think there was a lot of bullying. And so when we got there, she sat with admin, and then she changed her pronouns. She said, I want to be called he, I'm a he. And he hadn't shared with his parents at that point,
I might have to
living
clip
with
this
grandparents. And so, it was 10 years ago, so we were still trying to navigate it and figure that out. The grandparents were fully on board, and he said, I left this last school because I was bullied. I tried to identify as a girl, but I was still called gay. I was still called a he. Like, I was made fun of even when I tried to identify as a girl. So I think he was trying to live as a she, and it just got really bad. And I know there's lots of stories, and I think, Marcy, your question is fantastic. I'd like to know that as well. And Cindy, your answer worked for me too, to know. Just a little anecdotal.
Yeah, no, thank you. And Marcy, to your question, I'm skimming it neurodivergent, so bear with me.
Hang on, I got a super chat from Sin. Sin, thank you. I just received a document from my kidney dialysis office asking for my pronouns, gender, and sex. It was required and put in my medical file. I'm sorry to hear that, Sin. Thank you for sharing that with us. Yes, Bot, I'm gonna drink it next. You might be catching up.
Sometimes reading things is not my wheelhouse. But I think, again, it goes back to finding this balance of like, okay, this is my personal boundaries, and how do I honor this student, right? So finding clothes, for example, like maybe could not be a resource that you'll have. But if you have like costumes in your classroom, like, cool, I'm gonna let the student explore and play and dress with these costumes in a way that feels good for them. And I think if parents aren't on board, again, it's the best practices are just super, super clear on the power of affirming. And like, I helped myself and a bunch of other organizations help the VDOE write the trans model guidelines. And one question we get asked a lot is like, well, are you lying to parents? Are you lying to guardians? Like, the research is also incredibly clear that when school and home are on board, we're going to see youth thrive. Like, we are going to see them rock and roll. And if one environment isn't, I always think of it like a balancing act, because I've worked with middle schoolers in particular where both home and school were bad. And that's when I was like, okay, how do I see your face next week, right? Because you're feeling so hopeless, so depressed, so anxious because your whole universe is not okay. But the youth that were able to say, you know what, home isn't great, but I can go to Miss Jones.
Hang on.
I'm
gonna answer Moxie's question.
Affirms me.
No, this is not against the law in Virginia. Because when Glenn Youngkin claimed he banned this stuff, he really didn't. The executive order that Glenn Youngkin gave doesn't work. None of the stuff that they've done in Virginia works to prevent this stuff. Now, this was back in March. So there are new regulations, I believe, going in now that are designed to prevent this sort of stuff. But like anyone who thinks that Glenn Youngkin banned this stuff in Virginia has been lied to by conservative influencers who didn't bother to actually read what he did and just wanted to report a win out. But no, this is not banned in Virginia. Absolutely not. Conservative influencers are lying about it to make people believe that Republicans are more effective than they actually are.
Every single day, and I can have lunch in her classroom, and my chosen name is honored, and I can play and explore and do all these things. So there's at least a moment for me to catch my breath, and I think that's what schools can offer, or vice versa. If school isn't great, can home be that space where youth can just like collapse and just be their full authentic selves? And I see your hands up, so yes, please.
Yeah, I love all people, and I will affirm every student, every single day. And I'm being very vulnerable when I just want to say I just have a big boundary between affirmation and encouragement that I'm finding. I just am so comfortable with affirmation. Yeah. I'm finding there begins to be a blur for me with encouragement, and that makes me very uncomfortable. As a parent, and because
conservative, secret conservative right here.
And I would want to know what's going on with my children. And the same way I wouldn't encourage mask wearing or not wearing, I'm just finding this, religion, not religion.
Hang on. I want to go back and start this lady from the start, because this lady so far is the hero of the presentation. That woman in red is a secret conservative. She's a secret closet conservative that is speaking up in like the most like politically correct way she possibly can. What this woman is actually saying is, I don't buy into any of this shit. But she's saying it in a way that's not going to get her fired. Let's take notes from this lady on how to speak up and push back.
Collapse and just be their full authentic selves. And I see your hands up, so yes,
I don't want to clip it. I don't want to get her in trouble.
I love all people, and I will affirm every student, every single day. And I'm being very vulnerable when I just want to say I just have a big boundary between affirmation and encouragement that I'm finding. I just am so comfortable with affirmation. Yeah. I'm finding there begins to be a blur for me with encouragement, and that makes me very uncomfortable. As a parent, and because I have boundaries for my family, and I would want to know what's going on with my children, and the same way I wouldn't encourage mask wearing or not wearing, I'm just finding this, religion, not religion, this boundary, and what exactly does affirmation look like versus encouragement?
Yeah, no, thank you. And I really appreciate your vulnerability. And I think you bring up a great point, right? So when I work with students, right, I'll use the example. My partner, she has a 4-year-old cousin, right? Super cute kid, loves trucks, loves like throwing them across the room, like just banging on them, right? So like I was playing with him, and we're playing with like all of his mini trucks, and he just happened to also pick up a doll and started like playing with it. I was like, oh, cool. Like, what's your doll's name? Do. I'm not encouraging him. I'm not being like, hey, like hold this doll, like play with this doll, right? I'm kind of forcing you into this box. But like, if he naturally picks it up, it's like, oh, cool. Tell me about your doll. Do you want to put the doll on the Hot Wheel? And then what happens, right? Like, tell me like what's happening in your brain. So to me, affirmation is
spirit matter. She knows how to speak woke. Well done.
Just kind of seeing where are they going versus, to me, encouragement. Like I've also seen it almost where it's like folks are sort of forcing like boys to play with dolls or girls to play with Hot Wheels. It's like, let's just like see where that natural interest is, but I'm just giving the space and the permission to let youth explore like what they're sort of naturally curious about. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think a lot like on the middle school level too, where I'm seeing a trend of like most of the murals in the building being pro like, you know, transgender or and I'm my concern is in a time where children are growing, if we're encouraging, does this become a popular thing versus is this honoring my true self? And that's where my struggle is right now.
Yeah, no, that's so real. I mean, I won't lie, like I've had that moment looking at some middle schoolers, because middle school, right, it's that interesting age where I pick an identity and my whole being is that identity. Like I'm nothing else. It's like, hey friends, like, let's expand ourselves. So again, for me, it's just finding ways to not push back, but just have them question and be like, okay, cool. Like you're saying your whole world is LGBTQI. Like, do you have other interests? Do you have other things? And we're just, again, I'm just trying to naturally push them to always expand and question, is this right? Is this my truth?
That was such a lovely call out. That is, if you need to call out this bullshit at like your kid's school, that is the way to do it. That is like a master class in calling this shit out. Because she was just so nice about it. There was no way, like, I just don't want to encourage it. And I sometimes think we cross the line between encouraging it. This is where we need to know, like, listen, I know that I'm aggressive a lot of the times. Well, that's not even true. Like, a lot of times people will see me being very aggressive when I'm calling this shit out. And of course that's what's going to stick out, because when I'm being aggressive, I'm inevitably going to piss someone off, right? But sometimes there are times to be aggressive. When you're a parent or a teacher in the schools, that is not a time to be aggressive. You need to learn when to turn on the aggression and when to turn off the aggression and go more relaxed and try to be more go with the flow. I did a video about this on my main channel. It's called why we should why we should play mind games with people, why we should screw with their heads, something like that. It's been within the last couple of weeks that I did it. But one of the things I'm saying is there's sometimes we want to dominate people, like get right in their face and be like, maybe you're not going to do this. Maybe like we want to make them feel trapped and small and awful. There are other times that we want to relax into it. We want to try to go with the flow. We want to try to like top from the bottom. We want to say, I just don't understand why we're doing this. We want to try to speak their language, like pretend that I love everyone and I want everyone to have the best possible life that they can possibly have. And I think it's great when people are trans and trans people are beautiful, but I just don't, I'm worried about the difference between being an ally and encouraging it. Like sometimes you need to relax into it and try to go with the flow as a way to make your point. That lady just presented an absolute master class.
What feels like most at home for me, because that's my goal, right? I just want youth to be their full selves. And that's the mission of Side by Side. And however we can do that, right? Like I want to follow their lead, follow their voice, because I'm a firm believer that youth have a very like deep understanding of who they are and developmentally, right? Sometimes they can use some assistance, right? Because I think sometimes our brains can sort of melt out of our ears during certain moments of adolescence. So just helping find a balance. Yeah. But thank you so much for your voice and your questions. Really appreciate it.
And just to follow it, like I support all people in their beliefs. And I have family members that are in same gender relationships. And I just wanted to voice my vulnerability because I know how confusing middle school can be. And I
blocked it out.
And these situations in my own head and understand what it looks like as an educator and supporter, and have families be comfortable with our roles also as, you know, advocates for children. So
yeah, thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to keep on swimming, just trying to be mindful of time. Loving this conversation. Y'all are very smart. Y'all are on it. I'm sweating. in a good way. Like it's just like, ooh, okay, cool. Like we're engaging. All right. So just to finish up this section, so we have sexual orientation, right? So for sexual orientation, we want to break it up from orientation and desire, right? So I was always taught like, don't have sex until you're married or in love or all of these things. And I think the intent, right, is I want you to understand that this is a big thing. Don't just jump into it. I want you to have a connection with someone. All great stuff, all great intentions. Also, what it does is it can teach us that sex and intimacy are one and the same thing. And probably the biggest identity I'm seeing pop up, especially around the middle school age, is language around being asexual or aromantic. So asexual is someone who does not experience sexual desire as our society expects. This could be someone who absolutely does not want to do any sort of sexual activity, or it could be like it's more fluid. I need a deeper connection with someone. Just kind of depends what's happening. So it's absolutely a spectrum. Same with aromantic. Aro youth is someone who does not experience romantic desires, things like that. So just really important to break these two things up and give permission for youth. With sexual orientation and romantic desire.
Why are you talking about this in elementary school?
Later elementary, middle school time versus gender identity is really
No.
popping up around elementary level. But just wanted to name all of this.
Why are you talking about sex and romance in elementary school? Why? That makes no sense at all.
And then allosexual or alloromantic is someone who experiences sexual and or romantic desire.
Actually, I'm going to clip that. Hang on. Sorry, going to clip it.
In my own head and understand what it looks like as an educator and supporter, and have families be comfortable with our roles also as, you know, advocates for children. So
thank you. Thank you. So I'm going to keep on swimming, just trying to be mindful of time. Loving this conversation. Y'all are very smart. Y'all are on it. I'm sweating in a good way. Like it's just like, ooh, okay, cool. Like we're engaging. All right. So just to finish up this section, so we have sexual orientation, right? So for sexual orientation, we want to break it up from orientation and desire, right? So I was always taught like, don't have sex until you're married or in love or all of these things. And I think the intent, right, is I want you to understand that this is a big thing. Don't just jump into it. I want you to have a connection with someone. All great stuff, all great intentions. Also, what it does is it can teach us that sex and intimacy are one and the same thing. And probably the biggest identity I'm seeing pop up, especially around the middle school age, is language around being asexual or aromantic. So asexual is someone who does not experience sexual desire as our society expects. This could be someone who absolutely does not want to do any sort of sexual activity, or it could be like it's more fluid. I need a deeper connection with someone. Just kind of depends what's happening. So it's absolutely a spectrum. Same with aromantic. Aro youth is someone who does not experience romantic desires, things like that. So just really important to break these two things up and give permission for youth. With sexual orientation and romantic desire, you're going to these start popping up more like that later elementary, middle school time versus gender identity is really popping up around elementary level. But just wanted to name all of this. And then allosexual or alloromantic is someone who experiences sexual and or romantic desire as society expects.
Did you hear her? I'm sorry, them. Did you hear this person say that they're seeing a lot of asexuals pop up around middle school? I'm sorry, what? Bree says, I live 5 to 10 minutes from Mountain View. Yep. All right, guys, please mount that like button if you haven't already. And if you are watching on my main channel, please consider heading over to my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. We are doing a special screening of Happy Hour today on my main channel, but typically these are always going to be held on my second channel on Fridays at 5 p.m. Bree says it's in Centerville, VA, right? Albemarle County, Virginia. I'm not sure where that is. But this is an elementary school. This is a training for teachers in elementary school. You know why they're trying to make kids asexual, right? Why are they pushing this idea that a lot of students are coming out in middle school as being asexual? Why might they be trying to convince the kids that they're asexual? Anyone? Pop quiz in the chat. Well, let's see who's been watching Socialism Saturday. Any guesses? I know there's a little bit of a delay, so I'm waiting out the delay. To destroy the family unit. That is correct. To destroy family, so government can take over, depopulation. They have a vested interest in convincing the kids they are asexual. Population control. One step to destroy the family. Well, I guess, Jen, yeah. Surrogacy, exactly. Kids at that age don't know what it is. They have no idea. How convenient.
I was just checking for questions. So I'm gonna keep on swimming, but just to finish up this section, if you have a youth who comes out as asexual, aromantic, I think it can be really impactful to just, again, give them permission and be like, cool, you're not broken. You don't need to meet the right person. This is a valid experience and you're fine to be exactly who you are. A lot of times, especially parents or adults who have youth who come out as ace or arrow, they're like, I think there's anxiety of like, oh, I don't want my kid to be alone. Are they going to have any sort of like deeper relationship or anything like that? And yes to all of it. Like students who identify within the ace community can have like deep, impactful, meaningful relationships. It just might look different. And so just giving them permission. But I have some very, very dear friends who identify within the ace arrow umbrellas, and they said that they kind of forced themselves into relationships and just different situations where they thought that they just had to kind of suck it up. And like, if they just sort of did these physical things, then finally something would click and they'd have these feelings. And they said that all they feel like they did was just traumatize themselves and violate themselves because this is not how they connect with folks. And so again, I think just that power of giving youth the language and the permission to be like, cool. So maybe for
this
you,
is
you need to
elementary
have a
school.
deep
This is not even middle
understanding,
school.
connection, whether that's intellectual, spiritual, emotional, before you can even think to kiss someone. Cool. Or maybe you don't want to kiss anyone at all. Neat. But you want to have those long romantic chats and cuddles or whatever. So it just, again, giving all that different visibility can be so powerful. And yeah, I see that.
DeHaven, I want to jump in here just because this is going a little deeper than, I mean, this is more for adults here. This conversation here, we would strictly adhere to our family life curriculum.
Gotcha.
And where that is. And so I think that's good information for us as adults to be aware of, but we would not be talking about any of that at elementary. We have to really follow.
Excellent. Someone has stepped in.
An approach that we're going to do for family life here is that we're going to continue on Zoom so that children can log in and listen to the family life section that they identify with.
That's
one
funny.
of the wonderful things that has come out of Zoom that we learned. They're like, hey, this will be great and safe for all children as we go forward. So I just wanted to put that out here. I really appreciate you sharing that, but that is not what we'll be talking about.
Cool. Thank you.
She just shut that down.
And so just finishing up this section, this is kind of these lines are sort of what society expects, right? It's just kind of this linear fashion of how we'll identify, express, love, connect with folks, all of that. And the reality is this. So I'm sure even in this Zoom room, the diversity is probably all over the place of how we identify our bodies, how we love.
That's why it's happy hour.
How we express ourselves.
We drink while we watch crazy shit. Welcome.
Erases that
Have
diversity,
a seat.
and it's this
grab a glass
that triggers so much of the mental health struggles that LGBTQ youth experience. So a lot of times when when folks see the statistics around LGBTQ youth, particularly trans youth, I think sometimes people will think, oh, it's because they identify. And it's like, no, they come out.
I would never get high on the internet bot, as you know.
And so
I would never do such a thing.
Can just cause those rates
but
of
I can't control what you do in your house. It's up to you. I'm not one to judge.
Time is absolutely not my friend today, y'all. I apologize. So with LGBTQ, unfortunately, a lot of times if you got on like Instagram, for example, you're going to see me. You're going to see white, poofy hair and all of this. And what that does is it creates this
Intersectionality.
whitewashing, this erasure of all of the diversity that exists within this massive LGBTQ community. So it's super important to, for example, if you're going to ask pronouns, don't ask someone their pronouns because you think they identify as part of the community, right? I'm asking everyone their pronouns because I can be a person of color and identify. I can be in a rural community and identify. I can be rich, able-bodied, religious, spiritual, all of these different elements come together and exist within the LGBTQ community. But what we see time and again is this very limited representation and narrow version of what it means to be LGBTQ. So if you are, for example, teaching a class or you have story time with your students, what are the books that you're using? What are the different ways that you can bring in a more intersectional lens so that all students can see themselves and be like, oh, cool, like that's what my family looks like. Or I didn't know that I could identify or have these words. And you're just, again, creating representation, because I think when you see yourself and your story everywhere, you miss the power of seeing someone who looks like you and shares your story and shares your identity. It's like, oh, wow, like I can be that thing. Like I was working with a young trans girl who wants to be a chemist. And she was like, I can't be a chemist because I'm a trans girl. It's like, no, yes, you can. Please go do chemistry, like, and teach me, because I flunked out of VCU chemistry epically. But again, she hadn't seen it, so she didn't know it was a possibility. So with 3 risk factors, I'm just going to go through this pretty quickly so that we can talk about the policy. These are the 3 main wheelhouses that we see of youth being at risk for mental health struggles. So with family rejection, this could be anything from a youth coming out, this would be more at the older school level, but a youth coming out and then parents being like, you're no longer welcome in my home, or I'm going to make home life so uncomfortable that you feel like you need to leave. In one survey that was done, it said that only 27% of trans youth said that their families were affirming or supportive, right? 27%, like it's so small, right? And other pieces of family rejection could look like, we have family coming over, so you need to dress in this way, or I'm going to call you by your old name, your birth name, your old pronouns, and you need to kind of hide these pieces. So I think sometimes the intent is I'm trying to protect my kiddo, but what the youth is hearing and seeing is, oh, I need to hide these pieces of me and I can't just be me, right? I was working with a mom who's an incredible advocate, and her youth came out as trans around middle school. And she said that before he came out, he was failing school. He would come home, go straight to his room, like absolutely disengaged from every level of the family. And then he came out and everyone started honoring his name, his pronouns. And it was like a light turned on. And all of a sudden he was acing school. He was cooking dinner. He was watching movies with the family. Like he was completely engaged. I just remember her saying, like, I don't care how my kid identifies. I just want my kid. Like I want my child back. And now by me saying, hey, John, I'm seeing my child again and all of his wackiness and like done. So I always think about that story when working with families and just being like, cool, sometimes like it just can be that initial like, no, I'm not okay. But through education, through support, and a space for parents and families to catch up, grieve, have all these complex emotions, then they're able to see like, oh, my kid is still my kid. They're just seeing themselves in this way. Cool. What does my kiddo need? Like, let's rock and roll. So with isolation, the biggest thing with this one for me is concealment of identity. So I think first, like, youth can register that, oh, I'm different.
Oh, just so you guys know, Musk is releasing the Twitter files right now. Matt Taibbi's tweeting about it. Holy shit. Holy shit. This is going to be fascinating. Although something weird is happening with the thread. It's actually like not loading for me. Oh, there it goes. Okay, now it's loading. All right, well, gird your loins. We're not going to break away from this for that, though. That Twitter thread will be there when we're ready. But my God, I just scanned through what he's releasing so far, and this is fucking scandalous. But we're focusing in. Focus, focus, focus. We have 40 minutes left of this. Not even. 30 minutes left of this and change. Let's keep going.
I have these feelings, I'm seeing myself in this different way. Like that doesn't feel great. I feel like disconnected from my group. But then if there's a lot of like, that's so gay or no homo or pressure to exist and express myself in a certain way, now I need to hide this piece of myself. And that concealment can be absolutely exhausting and soul sucking for youth. And it's like, if you, like, let's say like you are trying to talk about your life and you're not able to talk about your interests, you're not able to talk about your significant others, your children, like how much of yourself can you really share with someone, right? If you're just being like, I'm just not going to name anything that might clue someone that I feel this way or identify in this way, right? So again, being intentional with representation in your classroom, I think can help give youth that permission. And then also interrupting in real time any sort of bullying or homophobic, transphobic language just floating around, and trying to figure out ways to create a culture where youth can just be. And so lastly, with this section, hostile school environments, we really look at like that school setting. So GLSEN is an incredible organization that does a lot of research on the lived experiences of LGBTQ youth at K through 12 levels. And so what's seen is that even though the vast majority of elementary students get some sort of dialogue, workshop, classroom setting on diversity, there's still incredibly high rates of bullying, right? So like what's happening that we're talking about these things, but there's something missing in reality where students are still feeling like, oh, I need to exist in this way and perform in this way so that I'm in line with what my community expects, right? And so the rates of youth kind of exploring and being like more gender expansive and not following traditional gender norms, I think that's just going to increase as gender is literally being reconstructed in real time, right? Like Gen Z's understanding of gender is so different than millennials, than Gen X, and it's just changing so quickly. And I think just watching that cultural change is one, it's gonna be really fascinating, but also just interrupting.
I just want to, sorry, I'm perusing the Twitter files as I'm reading this. I know I should be focusing. I know I should be. Check this out though. Both parties, so they're basically talking about how the White House would make requests to Twitter to remove tweets that they found problematic. I want everyone to listen. Both parties had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House and the Biden campaign were received and honored. It wasn't just the left. They were working with Trump too. Holy hell.
Any sort of that's so gay or homophobic remarks so that students see like, hey, this isn't acceptable. And I'm being that real life example for my students as the adult in this space. Okay, protective factors, ending on a happy note. So before we jump into the activity, what I want y'all to think about is what biases do you have, right? We all have them, whether we like to admit them or not. We're human beings. We've all been taught certain scripts, how to live, how to exist. So we all have biases. Just naming them and being like, oh, cool. All right. I got a little squirmy there. I'm going to name that. We're going to continue our educational journey, right? So the second big thing is with this activity, thinking about curiosity. So the older I get, the more pressure I feel to not be a curious person who wants to just learn and expand, which makes me incredibly sad. I think a lot of times with youth, I see like us kind of adulting them. And instead it's like, can I just meet you with curiosity and try to enter your wonderful, bizarre world and just engage with you in that way and enter your level. And then with lastly, how can we be proactive? So what are things that we can do, whether that's a lesson plan as a school community, how can we engage our students to just create this more inclusive environment? So this is the massive VDOE policy trans guidelines, right? So each of these 8 points is from the lived experiences of trans students at the K through 12 level, saying this is what I need in order to learn the joys of calculus or to actually like absorb history, right? And just show up and pass school. So
what? This is what trans students need to absorb the joys of calculus? What the fuck are you talking about? No one absorbs joys of calculus. Trans or otherwise. Trans people do not need special things. Everyone hates calculus. It's the way it goes. They don't hate calculus because they're trans. They hate calculus because it's calculus. And I say that as someone who was really good at calculus. Not anymore. I haven't done math in years, but there was a point in my life where I was really good at math, and it peaked when I was about 17.
What we're gonna do is break y'all up into breakout groups for.
I love when we
time's
get to
not
see
my
the
friend,
breakout
for
groups.
like 5-6 minutes, and I want
No,
y'all.
we'll do 10 minutes. We'll
10
do
minutes?
10
Okay,
minutes.
cool.
Yeah.
And just read through Nicole's story. There's some objectives at each point, but just think of in Nicole's day, what are things we can do to affirm and things to interrupt any sort of bullying or things that might make her experience more hostile? How can we just support Nicole so that she can show up and like rock out school and be like a full human? So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because I was just talking for so long, y'all. Y'all are gonna go into breakout rooms.
I will put the link to Nicole's story in the chat for everybody. It's also linked in the materials, but I thought it might be easier to have there. Brad's going to open up breakout rooms. We thought the way to have this conversation would be with your PLC teams or your teams that you normally work with. And so we'll take 10 minutes to do that.
Yeah, and before I open those up, that was our attempt, right, to kind of put that together. So, but if you, like, for example, if you are an ESOL teacher and you are doing something with one grade level and you want to join that grade level, that's fine. So again, this is our attempt, but if you see a different PLC on here that you would like to join, that's also okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open those now.
Brad, when I get back, remind me to turn the recording back on. So I don't want to record this part.
Oh, I want to see the breakouts.
And if anybody needs help getting into a room, just let me know. I know sometimes with some of the updates in Zoom, it's a little tricky.
It's
so
not that tricky at all.
I'm more than happy to help.
He looks like a Brad, doesn't he? No offense to any Brads that are watching. He looks like a Brad, though.
Hey, Brad. Hey, Cindy.
Hey, Yvette.
I just joined in because our DPLC just concluded.
Okay. Yeah, no, that works. It's good to see you, Yvette. So right now we're going to go into breakout rooms. If you see that up there, you can join the pre-K one, kind of read through this story and talk with the team. But if you need help getting into that breakout room, I can help.
All the easy pre-K were in the DPLC. So
okay, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. They're just
Yeah,
troubleshooting.
Okay.
I'm always like, I feel like sometimes with the online trainings, like
hard to gauge.
I'm like, oh, that isn't good, and then I get really good feedback, or vice versa, and I'm like,
it's just hard to gauge the faces, you know.
That's right.
Topics, because she put herself.
They're just chit-chatting
for teaching other kids how to refer to them.
Right.
And I mean, how do you do when they're only 5-year-olds and they don't know yet? They're just exploring, you know, their identity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think like just asking, like, you know, like
this person has crazy eyes.
You know, but it could just be something so simple, like, hey, like, I know you by this name. Is there another name you want me to call you? It's like, oh yeah, like I want, like, just again, I think our brains, especially as adults, I know for myself, like just overanalyze everything. Kids, like, God bless elementary students, like they'll just take things at face value, you know. Like I was working with one teacher
because they don't have that part of their brain yet.
Fourth grade, third, something like that. and she's a woman but presents in a very masculine way. And she said she had a student ask if she was a man because she has short hair, and she just freaked out, didn't know how to respond, called me panicking. And I was like, well, do you identify as a man? And she's like, well, no, I'm a woman. I was like, just say that, like, just say that you're a woman with short hair. And she did the next day, and the student was like, okay, and just ran off. And it wasn't like, he was like, oh, cool, I didn't know that you could be a woman with short hair, because all the women in the student's life had really long hair.
Yeah,
Right, like,
overanalyze.
oh wait, and
We do that for a lot of things. Like we sexualize,
right, like
sometimes
students are
interactions,
just,
and I said,
so much of
adult
what
thing.
students do at this age, like they're just like, bodies are weird, they're like, worlds are weird, like they're just playing and exploring. But when we put fear and shame and charge everything up, I think that's when we start having issues, versus just being like, cool, like you're wearing your princess dress, neat.
That's wonderful.
Like just
That's good.
de-escalating everything. I think that alone can be so powerful for you.
That's the best message we can give. De-escalate everything. Don't make it more than it is. I like that. We need that for everything in our lives, to be honest.
Truly. I mean, adults just we overcomplicate so much. Like we just need to let our brains go to sleep for a few days and just
You're so right. You're so right. Well, you make me feel better. I always been kind of tomboy, and I remember getting short hair. I remember kids asking, you a boy or a girl? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Same. And it's just like,
are you a boy or a girl? Or asking my brothers, is that a boy or a girl? I mean, like whispering. I said, well, I'm a girl with a lot of tomboy, a lot of male things that I still do. I mean, still do.
Right.
All right. So Levin, sorry, I'm just gonna.
That's okay.
How much time do you feel like you need at the end? I know we told staff.
I know.
Like, we wrap up around 11:30.
Can you put like a message and be like, hey, like 1 more minute, wrap up, and then we'll bring folks back.
Do you need about like 10 minutes at the end to kind of wrap things up, or is that kind of straight? I know that's fast.
Not my friend. I can just like rush through stuff. And again, like there's so much in the resources, so I can just do like a quick summary of things.
Yeah, and I don't. Yeah, and if for whatever it's worth, I don't want you to feel like you have to rush. So if you need just to kind of focus in on one thing or do, I mean.
All right, hang on.
Let's do. Like, why am I just standing here like watching? Like, there's nothing.
Just so you guys know, and again, I've done so much corporate training, it's ridiculous. I've done a lot of virtual corporate training too. I would never do this shit. Like, this is not how you engage with people when you are in the middle of a training session. It's just not. This is completely unprofessional.
So weird.
But I really think PLC Plus is about all of us. There is power in all of us working together. And yeah, if you want to put words of affirmation to even right now in the chat, I know they would love to read those in addition to what I'm sure will be put on the exit slip.
Are you serious? Is this woman really asking the teachers to provide words of affirmation to the trainer? To make the trainer that they are paying, by the way, and they're probably not paying just a little bit, they're probably paying a lot. Like, you want the teachers to provide words of affirmation to make the trainer feel good about how the trainer did today? Holy shit. This does not happen in normal life, guys. This is not normal at all. In any way.
But just
I have never had a team I've trained do affirmations around me.
For us to expand and explore. The breakout room I was in, we were talking about the complexity of this issue. So that's why we really need to have more conversation.
It is a participation award, Jack.
Like, I don't want anybody on Monday to have a morning meeting where we go around and say, share your preferred pronouns. We're not there yet. Okay. I think we might eventually get there, but let's have conversation about how we'll present. Our next faculty meeting in April will bring back ideas that teams have that we have together, and we'll proceed thoughtfully and carefully and intentionally, because I love this. We do not have to fully understand to respect and honor another human. We don't tolerate bullying at Mountain View. We don't tolerate teasing. We need to give kids the language and give ourselves the language, right? And give ourselves permission to be vulnerable and learn together. So thank you, thank you, thank you to Haven so much. I want to go in and share my screen for the exit slip here.
Can I ask a quick question of Haven? Haven, do you have contact information?
Yeah,
so
let me
we can
share
reach
it right
out to
now.
you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank
Thank you
you
for
so
that.
much.
That person
reminder.
is concerning to me. I don't know who that was, but that person
Thank
is
you,
concerning
Katie, for
to me.
asking. Very important. And yes, we'll put it in there. We'll also have link to Haven gave us many, many more resources, and the link to resources. There's a lot there for us to work together on. So thank you.
And then all those resources in the last chunk of the slide deck that y'all have are just some like concrete action steps, like honoring youth's chosen name, pronouns, things like that. So definitely look through all of that for some clear.
Thank you, Sin, for your
What do
affirmation
I do
of
now?
me.
And obviously, like I said,
appreciate
like,
it,
talking about
Sin.
that as a group, things like
You
that.
are a
But
good
there's a lot of
ally,
different
Sin,
things
a
in
good
there.
member of my cult.
And maybe we'll
You're
have you
only
come
ever
back
allowed to
on
say
our
things
next
that
faculty
affirm
meeting
me.
just to listen and be in the room with us if that works out. I'm just thinking aloud. I see Katie's like, yay! I think that we need all of us working on this together. So thank you. And we started with this, want to end with this. Do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. All right, so there's
Thank
an
you,
exit
average
slip
person.
here.
I
I'll
appreciate
try
that
to copy it,
affirmation.
but really what we'd like to hear from you, I know it's a
If
lot of
anyone else wants
information,
to
there's a
affirm
lot to
me,
process.
please feel free to do so
This
in
is
the
anonymous
chat.
exit slip, so I'm not collecting
Or
anybody's
not,
email
at your
addresses, but
leisure.
really curious to hear what is circling around in your head. What did you hear today that squares with your thinking? 3 takeaways or ideas, maybe things that didn't square with your thinking, like this is safe, okay? We need to know where we all are to be able to move forward. I'd really like to know, as a result of this workshop, an action step you'll take professionally. We're not yet at the step of taking this, rolling it out as a school. There's a lot we need to talk about, but I feel like the
Amaru over on
conversations we've
Rumble,
had up
thank you
until
for your
this point
participation in the chat. I
about
want you to
children,
know that I see it,
together at PLCs
even though I don't
is gonna
always
move
watch
us
Rumble
forward.
chat.
So
But thank you for your
that's where we are with the
participation,
exit slip. I'll
Amaru
put
and
that in the
Desensitized.
slide deck. And then Rosari, you were going to close us out.
Hello, everybody. I hope you enjoy it and learn. I know I learned a lot.
Did everyone
even,
learn?
About this
Oh,
topic
thank
and
you.
how
Thank
to
you
be
guys for the
sensitive and how to
affirmations in the
be
chat.
respectful.
Thank you.
Of everybody.
Thank you for
But
your
I
affirmations.
this is for the classroom
Thank you,
teachers
Bot.
and for any teacher.
Thank you.
Resource teachers are going to be meeting soon for the next
Thank you, fandom.
section of our PD with your teams to look at the data. This morning, you all went to
I did. I
the
affirmed Rumble.
DPLC, and we did what I was very proud. We were pretty much there with everybody. I felt like we were just part of the whole thing. So look, when you start, so we don't we do.
Thank you, Nick.
We do the work because I don't want everybody to do double work. Let's use the template that we used this morning for the DPLC. And
thanks,
and
Kurt.
Use the coaching protocol. Coaching corner protocol is slide 13 to analyze your data.
Thank you, gratitude.
If you're in that section already.
Thank you for your affirmations.
Plan on with the data that we have from the mid-year. And use the slide 14 and you can just add rows.
All right. They're just
doing
housekeeping. So we're going to wrap it up, guys. I hope you learned a thing or two about what's going on in schools. And if you think that's exclusive to this school, I promise you that you are wrong. All right, guys, we do happy hour every week on Friday at 5 p.m. on my second channel, youtube.com/activelyunwoke. I'm only streaming on my main channel today as like a nice little welcome. I'm trying to roll out the red carpet to my main YouTube channel to try to migrate you guys and also have you subscribe to my second YouTube channel. But please feel free to join us every single week for happy hour at 5 p.m. Mount that like button on whatever channel you're watching on. And remember that you can support the work I'm doing by heading over to activelyunwoke.com/support, joining me as a monthly supporter on Patreon, joining me as a monthly supporter on Locals. You can also, or monthly or annual supporter on Locals. You can also be in my Substack. And we got a couple events going on this weekend. As a reminder, tomorrow we are having Unabomber Book Club in my community at 3 p.m. I will be inviting people in Patreon and people in local, well, supporters on Patreon and supporters on locals to join me for Unabomber Book Club at 3 p.m. Still plenty of time to read the Unabomber Manifesto. It's a doable read for everyone overnight if you want to. And you can come and have a chat with us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Time in locals. And then, of course, we have movie night on Sunday at 8 p.m. in the supporter Discord. We are going to be watching Fahrenheit 451. It's going to be great. I hope I'll see you guys there. For right now, take care. Have a great rest of your day. Go read those Twitter files, and we'll see you soon. Bye.